Okay, well, good morning and welcome everyone who is watching and following along with this edition of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame's Hall Call interview series. As always, I'm Will Driscoll, the Executive Director of the Hall of Fame, and I'm thrilled to once again bring you this content platform, Hall Call. But before we get started, I'd like to, of course, thank our Hall Call and Hall of Fame partners, Priority Automotive, the City of Virginia Beach, Davcon Inc., Optima Health, White Claw Hard Seltzer, ESPN Radio 94.1, Hamilton's Realty, and Davis Business Appraisers. We are able to bring you programs like Hall Call because of them. So thank you to all of them. Well, today, Hall Call actually takes us to the racetrack where a new program, Track Heroes, is tackling mental wellness among military veteran and first responders through the power of speed. Many within these ranks suffer daily with conditions such as PTSD, anxiety, depression, and stress as they transition to civilian life. Luke Ryker, who you see on your screen joining me, is a decorated Army veteran and founder of Track Heroes, a program that uses high-performance driver education events to improve the mental wellness outlook for this vital community. Luke, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Hey, thank you, Will, for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. You know, you and I have talked offline about this program, and it was something that just really piqued my interest. And before we get started, we were just talking a couple minutes ago that September is Suicide Prevention Month. So this is as good a time as any to highlight programs such as this aimed at helping those fighting this and other mental wellness battles. But kind of just give us a little bit of background on Track Heroes and how you got drawn into this program.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate that. Well, a little background on myself, like you said, I'm a veteran. I was in the EOD bomb squad, did a couple tours, Iraq, Afghanistan, all those good things. And after my tour, after my service, I got out and became an instructor and went through the various, support that the VA has to offer for, veterans like me. And, for a number of years, it did help a little bit. I did feel like I was getting a little bit better, but at some point I hit a brick wall, just wasn't feeling like I was making any more progress. Around that time, a friend introduced me to events called high performance driver education events, where you get to take your own car on a real racetrack and they give you an in-car instructor with like a little radio attachment to your head. And that you get to drive these actual racetracks and learn the racing line, like the real racing line in your own car. It's some of the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. And I started going to these events as often as I could afford to go to them. And I was feeling great. I was feeling like so much better than I was going through any of the other things before it. It was something to look forward to. It made looking at cars make a little bit more sense because, I was never really a big car guy of all things, right? And so as I started going to this, I was feeling significantly better. And I reached out to a friend of mine who was always talking about mindfulness and being in the now. And I felt like I was no more in the now than I was when I was driving a car. I mean, I was like right in the zone and everything was feeling great. And so I asked my friend, I'm like, hey, is this a kind of mindfulness? And what we discovered is that this is something a little bit different. Mindfulness is about, just being in the now and blanking your mind. Well, Track Heroes, what we found is that as you engage in these high performance driver education events, you achieve a heightened state, kind of like a fight or flight kind of state. But instead of always being associated with negative things, it's associated with positive things. It's associated with learning. It's associated with being awesome, and being great and achieving and rebuilding that, the personal self-confidence. And what it ends up doing is it creates new neural pathways in your brain, and it actually helps modify or lower the fight or flight chemicals in your brain over a certain period of time, which help veterans, help achieve more control within their lives, help them become more well-rounded, and definitely an increased amount of increased mental state. I mean, that's been the biggest thing. And we've only done, we've been around for a couple of years now, and even in that short amount of time, I've had some guys that I've served with or other veterans and first responders that I've had the fortune to meet. Told me that before these events, they had nothing to look forward to. They had nothing that was really firing them up. There was, they were in dark places in some spots, and they said that in this this program saved their lives. At least that's what they told me. And so at this point, I feel like I'm playing with house money. I've already helped people, and I hope that as more people learn about our program and more people want to support us, we'll be able to give this kind of program to more veterans and first responders and hopefully save even more lives.
Well, let's do that right now. We're going to talk a lot about the actual program, but you mentioned the transition back to civilian life is very difficult
Yes.
for first responders and veterans. Kind of talk about some of the issues that you and your community do face, and why a program like this is really important. So just kind of give us walk us through like your transition, like how you got to this point and how this program has been able to help you.
Well, I was very fortunate when I got out. I was able to immediately transition from being an EOD operator to being an instructor. So I went and taught, and so I was able to still be in the community in some way, even as a civilian, as a professional, contractor for supporting that side. But for most guys, when they get out, not only do they lose their purpose because now they went from having a mission that had objectives and milestones and awards and and recognition. In positions that of authority and respect, where they felt like they were doing something for the greater good, something more than themselves, and a great network. But when you get out, the military boat doesn't stop. If you get off the side of the boat, if you separate or whatever, the mission keeps going. And so all those people that were significant portions of your life, well, they're already down the stream, they're already down the street, they're doing something different already. And so you find yourself alone in a lot of instances. Another thing is a lot of the jobs and networks that you create within the military are specific and unique to the military. So when that boat goes, sometimes a lot of these guys find themselves just sitting on the couch with nothing to do, with nothing to really moor themselves and to give themselves, the positive, feelings about themselves, the self-worth. They don't have that thing that gives them purpose. And so a lot of guys turn to alcohol or drugs or something along those lines, or maybe just bad habits or just doing bad, making poor decisions. And it's a real challenge. So that's why our program is not just for combat veterans. We don't go and rate oh, your service is better than this person's service, or your trauma seems to be worse than someone else's trauma. Just serving, even as a vet in the military and any of the different services, or as a first responder, everybody's trauma is different and everybody reacts to things differently. So we don't judge or try to rate or stratify, your service. Our doors are open to anybody that meets those criteria.
Do you have any data on what percentage of the veteran and first responders community is dealing with some sort of mental wellness issue or issues? Is that something that's available to you guys?
We don't have those active numbers day to day, but it is a significant number. And some of the studies that we have found that just serving has PTSD. You have the possibility of developing PTSD just from the fact that you served, like the mindset that you gain, the way that you look at stuff. It affects the way that you process memories, the way you process, events. And so I've seen numbers as high as 70%. And back in the Vietnam and the earlier years, the prevalence of it seemed to be a little bit less, but I think it was just because the environment there wasn't as open as or accepting to, PTSD or mental health issues. I think that people are more accepting of it and there's less of a stigma associated with it. So we're seeing more people willing to self-identify and willing to go through the programs to help them hopefully get better.
Yeah, I think that you just brought up a great point. The stigma is decreasing, but there is still a stigma out there. And so how important is it to create programs like Track Heroes or other similar programs that kind of provide that sense of self-worth and purpose to help the veteran and first responder community, move forward as they progress through life?
It's absolutely vital. I'm saying we, but it's veterans are a proud group of people. We're a lot of us are mission oriented. We are very good at, once you give us an objective of working as hard as we can, even to sacrificing ourselves at times in order to get that mission accomplished. This having a purpose, having a group, having a team is something that a lot of these guys, like their late teens, early 20, or all their 20s and their 30s. That's talk about the developmental part of your life. You have that camaraderie, you have that fellowship with brothers and sisters. And not having that anymore, it's a blow that a lot of guys and gals just can't deal with.
Prior to your involvement with this program, what were you doing personally to kind of support foster your own healthy atmosphere for your mental wellness?
Well, I mean, I was going to the VA. I mean, I was going through the programs that they were offering, and I was being compliant both on, going through all the event or all the meetings and, whatever medication they recommended. But, at some point it just wasn't doing what I felt like it needed to do, and so.
So how then did you get introduced to, you said that you were introduced to the racing program. How did you then make that jump into the car?
Well, I mean, it was actually pretty cool. I mean, I dealt with a friend of mine down the street that worked at one of the dealerships, and one day he just called me up and said, "Hey, man, you got to come down to the dealership." And I thought I gave him an impossible task. I'm like, "Listen, man, because I got two amazing kids. I'm like, unless you got a 4-door car that's manual transmission and fast as heck, I'm not going." He's like, "Dude, I have two." And he introduced me to the Subaru STI, which I had never really considered a Subaru before that. But he introduced it to me. I mean, it fit the family. It was awesome, and the thing really crushed it around the track. And in that same meeting, he introduced me to his buddy named Rob, and Rob went to HPD events, and we signed up for one right then and there. I mean, right there while I was in the dealership. So it's this is not just me. Took a team of people, of support structures. Both my friends at the dealership, and my family being supportive of it. Then going out to the track and just the different car clubs that are out there, they're super supportive. I mean, I went there completely as a newbie. Like I said, I'm not a car guy. I know how to disarm bombs, and I got my hands and all that stuff. But when it comes to like driving a car, people tell me all these letters and numbers and stuff about engines and stuff. I'm like, man, I'm sorry, I'm not there yet. But they're an amazing community of people that are super welcoming. They were when above and beyond helping out. I mean, you'll see times where like a person's having car issues or they're looking for a tool, and like there's like 20 hands that jump in and hand, "Oh, here's the tool, here's the thing." Like I had a car issue one time. I had to push my car, and before I got 2 feet, I had 20 hands pushing me down the street. So, it's one of these things. I mean, you can just tell by my smile. I mean, it changed. It brought me back some of the feelings of brotherhood and mission a little bit that I had in the military. And I really felt that if I was able to get more brothers and sisters, veterans and first responders introduced and into that community, that they would benefit the same way I did. And so far, it's been very gratifying to see that the feedback that we've been getting is that so far that's been the case. Mm-hmm. We've been setting up our program right from the beginning to collect data. I mean, and we're still small, and we're still working through the stuff to make it an official medical research type thing. But the numbers that we're getting so far have been phenomenal. Like 40% decreases in anxiety, like 30% increase in better sleep, significantly lower stress. That seems, at least from the numbers that we've been getting from the guys, so it's all self-reported, that seems to last throughout the program. So it's been great to see that the concept works and that guys are getting something out of it. And like I said, we're just looking forward to making sure that it gets out as far as it can.
So your program is actually termed as high performance driver education. If you were to define high performance driver education, how would you define that term?
Oh man, it's a lot of fun. And so, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like for instance, in mid-October, we're going back to the Virginia International Raceway down, I think, in Alton, Virginia. It's right at the border of Virginia and North Carolina. It's one of the most beautiful tracks on the East Coast. And so you would show up, you would bring in your car, you get yourself in a helmet, and they would assign an instructor to you. And so you would go through a number of heats. They break you down by driver skill. Green group being like first time guys, blue a little bit more experience. White group is the first group where you don't need an instructor in your car. Then the red, and then the black is the most advanced. That's where all your instructors and your racers go. And they break their group of people into those five categories. And each group has a 20 to 30 minute run time where they get to go on the track for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. And they usually get 4 to 5 sessions a week or a day, and 2 days of driving a minimum. So you're talking like 4 hours of driving as fast as your car can go with an in-car instructor learning that driving line. And in between driving sessions, there's usually classrooms where they talk about, hey, this is turn 1, here's your entry point, here's your braking point, what are the things you learned, here's the different flags. And as you progress through the weekend, your in-car instructor gives you different objectives to learn different, this is the apex, here's your turning point, let's see if you can hit those a little bit more consistently. And as you progress, you go up into the different categories to if you end up getting the black level group, you're instructing other new guys and you're driving on the track by yourself, passing, it's not racing. And that's the big thing. A lot of people think this is racing and like, oh, my car's gonna get ruined and stuff, but this is straight up, driver education. So passing is only in certain areas, like on straightaways, and they have to be done with a point by, meaning the person in the front has to say, hey, pass me on the right or pass me on the left. And so it takes away a lot of the like, hey, this isn't door to door, crashing stuff. It's really a skill that you continue to develop. And as you develop, it just adds another layer of capability. You don't even need a fast car. Matter of fact, it's the slow cars that are really good in the corners that end up being the most fun, because anybody could go straight, fast straight, but it's learning the line, learning to turn in, and getting that momentum right. You get in the zone and it just feels good right here when it happens.
It's funny. I was going to ask you what a day at the racetrack for Track Heroes looks like, but you kind of just described it more as a weekend and this immersive experience. And you've mentioned the term sense of community, and how important was it to create this immersive experience to provide that community to all of the attendees and participants?
I mean, the community is one of the most important parts. I mean, the driving is fun and everything, but I mean, you could drive by yourself. Like when I first started, I was driving with some clubs that weren't really as friendly. But it wasn't until a friend of mine that I, after driving a few times, meeting a few events, introduced me to the Porsche Club of America side. And I was surprised. I was like, oh my God, these guys are so like friendly, like so overwhelmingly, supportive of it. And it was at that point where I was really starting to feel that sense of community, when I was really feeling like that team, like, you pull in, one guy jumps in, throws the chocks around the tires, another guy throws the fan by the brakes, another guy pops the hood for you, high fives on the way out, hands you a water, and you talk about, I was doing turn 2 and I was doing all this stuff. And it was like when that kind of clicked in, that that's part of that was one of the major steps to me wanting to share this with the rest of the community, because it was like, wow, this is where it is. So, the driving is very important, but, it didn't even click for me until the community part, really set in.
Well, one of the main reasons why you and I started talking about this a few weeks ago, maybe even a few months ago, is the fact that it does have a connection to Virginia, because you mentioned that you're hosting an upcoming event at Virginia International Raceway. And for those who don't know, you might be living under a rock, but Virginia has a very, very large active duty and veteran community. Yeah. Was that part of the reasoning for using a track like VIR as part of this program? Because that you have that close-knit community that you could also do easy outreach to.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing. I mean, finding a community or an area that's dense with veterans always helps. We're small right now. We don't really have as much of a following. We're still working on that. And so a lot of times, we have to, in order to find volunteers or find people to participate, we have to hit, dense areas so that our messaging actually hits them. So, Virginia being that, I mean, I was stationed in Virginia for 5 years back in the late 90s, early 2000s. When 9/11 hit, I was at Langley Air Force Base. And so, I do have a connection with Virginia. But I'll just say that VIR is just an amazing track. I mean, if you were to ask anybody who hits the circuits, VIR is always on the top of everybody's list when it comes to tracks on the East Coast. So, it's a combination of the veterans being there, but also just having an amazing facility, an amazing racetrack with amazing staff. I mean, there's a couple race teams out there, like the Hardpoint Racing team run by Rob Ferriel. He's a veteran too. I mean, he served around the same time I had. So, and his race shop is right there on VIR. So whenever we go out there, he opens up his doors and, lets the veterans poke around his racetrack, his race shop, and look at his cars. And, there's even another group out there, Racing for Heroes, with Mike Evok and his guys. They're out there at VIR too. So, not only is it a great community of veterans already on site, but, VIR is just an amazing facility, and there's some great resources and people already on site. So it's been it's almost a no-brainer. There's just the gravity of that track just keeps on pulling us back there. And like I said, we're going back there on October 15th and 16th with the First Settler region, and Scott Hoffman and those boys. And it's we always have a blast. Our guys always have a great time.
Yeah, the team and the community out around Virginia International Raceway is very good, and obviously one of the great venues here in Virginia. But kind of getting back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier, this is obviously great to build camaraderie. It's a great event and a great program to help build that sense of community. But you guys are also trying to create data to show this as it's listed on your website as an alternative pathway forward.
Correct. And we also want to say it's not.
What sort of data are you seeing that supports this idea of the high speed performance education?
Well, I mean, so far what we have is an autonomic function inventory. That's what we do, where we kind of ask the guys to rate, how they are on a sliding scale, left to right, very anxious, super calm, and, basically a sliding scale. And we have a number of things that we ask on that. And based on the data that we've gotten so far, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I mean, like quantifiably 44% decrease in anxiety, quantifiable 44% decrease in stress and anxiety, and 25% better sleep these guys were reporting. So, I mean, the data we've collected so far has all been pointing very positively, and using our data collection, methodologies right now. We're looking to expand that, as we get bigger. We want to expand, to include wearables. We're looking at potentially developing an app so the guys could actually report a little bit more efficiently, instead of, right now we're doing a lot of paper, email, that kind of stuff to kind of collect the data and do our interviews. So, we have other ways that we're looking to expand, and we're hoping to be able to collect data a little bit more efficiently. But, right now the inventories that we have, because our program actually is a 5-month program. They start off with there's an event, or the BMW Performance Center in Spartanburg, South Carolina. They have an M school where they provide, vehicles and cars, vehicles and instructors on a closed track, with an amazing catered lunch. It's out there. And we worked with them. We approached them a couple of years back, because one of our limitations is that on HPDE, you got to provide your own vehicle. Well, that's a limitation for a lot of guys that they can't overcome. And so we're still working around trying to find ways to increase access for other guys. But at BMW, they provide everything. And so we start them off. We take the 10 to 12 guys, depending on how big a class, how much funding we're able to receive, and put them through that class. And it's the same car, same track, same instructor, same time. And so it eliminates a lot of the variables, so it allows us to collect a lot more clean information, clean data on what these guys are experiencing and what their responses are to it. And at the end of that event, we kind of read them into the neuroscience part of our adaptive control program, where we talk about, why exactly we chose racing, why we chose the events we chose, why do they feel certain things that they're feeling. We explain to them the chemicals in their brain, and we need a kind of a quiet, closed place to go through it, because it gets pretty sciencey for a little while. And then after that, what we do is, for the next 4 or 5 months, depending on, when the class is, every month we have another video conference where we go a little bit more in depth into the brain science of it. We also ask them, any experiences that they may have had. It's not group therapy, but it's more along the lines of like expanding and building on the information that we gave them at BMW. But they also, through our partnership and coordination with those race clubs, we've been provided, 7 or 8 locations, 7 or 8 different events where these guys have offered, 6 to 7 slots to these events for free for us. And so we take those guys and then we sprinkle them throughout all the donated HPDE events. And as they go through those events, we take their more readings. We take, how are they feeling before and after? How are they feeling as they progress through the program? So in totality, the program, they start off with that BMW event where they get, right into the program. They get their basic driving skills so they have confidence on the track, and we introduce them to the brain science. Then 4 to 5 webinar events where we build on the brain science, and hopefully at least one HPDE event in the next 5 months, all followed by a graduation where we, ask them how they're doing at the end, anything that they learned, and of course, critiques to see how we can improve our product, because we are constantly looking to improve.
What are you hearing? Give us an idea of some of the testimonials you're hearing from some of the people who've gone through the whole process.
I mean, so far, it's just been overwhelmingly positive. Every single guy that's gone and gal that's gone through this event, have become advocates for us. They've gone back into their communities or where they came from, and, started actively pushing Track Heroes, starting to do fundraisers on their own. Right now, since we are kind of small, we're pulling from communities from all over the country. We had guys from New Mexico and Pennsylvania and Florida and Georgia, all over the place. And these guys are coming in and coming to our events and congregating and, making new friends. But our eventual goal is to kind of regionalize ourselves so that, let's just say, the Southeast region, let's just pick, or I'm in Carolina, the South Carolina area. So let's just say, we have our region, we're able to fundraise and gather enough funding at our location to sponsor our own BMW event, which is the kickoff event for a whole session of adaptive control. And then we pull from our own community 10 to 12 guys to go to the event. Now those guys go to the event, come back to our region, go to HPDE events around our region. And, we're able to create a close group of guys and gals that, could support each other. Because right now everyone's kind of diffused throughout the country. So, our eventual goal is to regionalize so that, guys and gals can have, friends close by, guys and gals that have, the same shared passions and interests, and, hopefully building a little community and maybe a support structure for people that maybe aren't fortunate enough to have them.
It's wonderful to hear. And that actually kind of led me into, you actually answered my next question about where do you see this growing? How do you want this to grow? But that, hearing that you want to make it regional and almost a nationwide type deal where things are happening all over the country, I think it would be a wonderful asset for the military and veteran first responder community. But what have you learned throughout this process?
Well, I'll tell you that, I've learned that that the veteran community is an amazing community of guys and gals that are just looking for help. I've learned that the racing and the racing community and the car enthusiast community is incredibly supportive of veterans and first responders, and that's just been across the board. I've also learned that smooth is faster than crazy, and so being smooth is much more preferable. It's definitely helped me calm down some of my more intense feelings. So that's definitely something I've taken away. And even just some of the skills I've learned. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys out there listening, if you've been on these events or been through track events or something like that, after you've gone through enough times, you could close your eyes and drive around the track. And that seems kind of like a performance thing, but what it ends up doing, it ends up being a very powerful meditation. I've had, sometimes I get a little claustrophobia, have some issues with that. I close my eyes, I drive around VIR a couple times, and I'm snoozing. I'm completely relaxed. And so, that's a skill that I've definitely learned through this, and I hope to share that. But, the biggest thing is just how much support there is for veterans, how much support both, in the sports and in the racing sports and even in the tracks side, communities, they're just wide open arms. As soon as I start talking about the program and explaining what we do and the people we serve, it's like, how can we help? How can we get involved with you guys? So it's been incredibly gratifying and humbling, to be honest.
That's wonderful. And, just going to get you out of here with one last question, but kind of a two-parter. First, how can people help? And two, if somebody is struggling and they want to learn more about this program and participate in the program, how can they go about doing that?
Well, the answer to both those questions is going to our website. It's trackheroes.org, and that's HEROES.org. On that site, there's registration buttons for you could register for the different events. There's a contact us button. We're not, psychiatrists and stuff like that. So this, if you have a serious mental health issue or if you're in a serious mental health crisis, please go contact, your crisis helplines. Those are the places to go. They have experts that are there to help support you and get you through your time of need. But I'll just tell you that there's light at the end of this tunnel. I mean, it doesn't matter how dark it may seem, you could always go on the track. You could always, there are people out there. And even if you feel like you're alone, I guarantee you, there's somebody out there looking to get into your life and help you out. So I'd say that, that definitely, the helping us out. If you're a veteran and you're looking for help, looking for, that, I definitely go hit that route. But if you want to get involved in our track day events, like I said, hit our website. We're also active on Instagram, where we, put a lot of cool videos and any of the different things that we do. And if you want to support us, I mean, we're always looking for donors and sponsors. We're always looking for people that may be already in the race community. If they have a car, if they're sponsored or whatnot. We've had a number of racers already put like our stickers on their car, which has been incredible to see. Seeing a Track Hero sticker on real race cars. That's it's just, again, very humbling, and it's amazing. So you can reach out to us. There's donate buttons on there. You can reach out to us. If you feel like you have a resource or an asset, maybe if you're a race club and you have an HPD event that you're sponsoring or hosting, and maybe you'd like to provide some free slots to us, you can reach out to us that way. At this point, we're new. The network, the access, the people knowing about us. That's the biggest thing to help us with is just helping getting the word out. So.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's it.
One more time though, about the event at Virginia International Raceway. When is that?
That is October 15th and 16th of this year, 2022, at the Virginia International Raceway with the Porsche Club of America First Settler Region. So if you guys can make it out there, we'd love to see you. We'll have our tents up. We'll have at least 5, maybe up to 10 to 15 veterans out there, all right into our program, all out there to have a good time and some camaraderie and some healing and some fellowship. So, if you're out there or if you're in the area, come check us out. And if you're planning on attending the event, please swing by the tent, come hang out with us. We're always about expanding our network and meeting new people.
Luke, this has been a great conversation. The work you're doing is amazing. And again, September is Suicide Prevention Month. So every little bit counts in helping not just veterans, not just military and first responders, but everybody who's dealing with mental wellness issues. Please, do what you can and just pay attention, listen, and if you can offer help. And Luke, your program is doing exactly what you intended it to do. And we love learning about it and catching up with you today. So thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Will, for the opportunity. Like I said, man, this has been wonderful. And I really appreciate this and the time that you took to talk to us.
Well, great. Well, thank you. And for more information, once again, on Track Heroes, its event programs and research, be sure to visit trackheroes.org, follow them on Facebook and Instagram. I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in. As always, thank you to all of our partners, Priority Automotive, City of Virginia Beach, DavCon, Optima Health, ESPN Radio 94.1, and Davis Business Appraisers. Stay tuned for updates on future Hall calls by following the Hall of Fame on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at VA Sports HOF. Once again, I'm Will Driscoll with the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Whatever you do, participate, don't spectate, and we'll see you next time.